Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, I've explained to you that we are still discussing about our free coaching, life training program, life coach training program, and I have given you various models, and we are discussing about the growth model, GROWTH, and now we are at the last acronym, that is the H, the habit parts. So in the habit parts, I've given to you a lot of ideas in terms of the nature of Islamic psychology, whether it's Jung, Carl Jung, or others. So I have explained to you that within the perspective of Islam and within the perspective of secular psychology also, Carl Jung, they have the realm of the unconscious or the subconscious and the realm of the conscious. Okay, so in terms of Carl Jung psychotherapy, because he is going through life, he has given certain ideas of how to understand in terms of the conscious self, the personal unconscious self, and the collective unconscious self. And here he cannot define what is the collective unconscious self. That means even though he denies in the sense that there is such thing as God, he refers back to the ancient mythology, whether it's a Christian mythology, which he disagrees completely, or the Greek mythology, which he agrees to a certain extent, and definitely he doesn't agree with Islamic mythology. But to him it's just all irrelevant in this existential idea of the 20th century. Remember, he lives in the 20th century. So out of Carl Jung and the whole thinkers in that time, including Kierkegaard, they have developed existential psychotherapy. And what is existential psychotherapy vis-a-vis Islamic psychology? Alright, this is the forerunner before we have, for example, CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. So they have this existential psychotherapy which they developed in the 20th century as a result of the meaninglessness that they are seeing, the depression, the anxiety that is growing at a rapid rate in an industrial 20th century society. Because this is the period where there is a turmoil in terms of the rejection of God. That means most of the time when the scientists say about God, they say, oh, it's just Darwinian theory and so on, which you can study in the books. But they derive, existential psychotherapy derives first from the phenomenology of what are the phenomena that we see within the perspective of this life, the phenomena of life, the phenomena of existence. So they derive certain ideas, even the phenomenology, from the Greek myth. This is where they used it. Then they have this existential framework and thinkers. So there's a lot of thinkers who have divorced God, but muddling around in life trying to find a purpose and meaning in life. But they are trying to frame it up, and in their moment of reflection, moment of meditation, they come close to Islam. But because their whole idea of existential psychology is that, well, there's no higher realm, or there's no God in their perspective of psychotherapy or psychology, they cannot fathom very deep into it. That's why I'm giving you this idea, so that you will then be able to understand that in Islam, 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years, I'm telling you, in the 9th century, Abu Zahid al-Balkhi has developed the whole framework of positive psychology. In fact, if you talk about positive psychology, it's not Seligman, not Martin Seligman is a father of positive psychology. This Abu Zahid al-Balkhi, 1,000 years ago. You read his manuscript 1,000 years ago. You can find that he has defined the whole idea of the basis of Islamic psychology and the basis of positive Islamic psychology, of the basis of positive psychology itself. Alright, so we lost our treasure. We Muslims now muddle around going back to existential psychotherapy. Alright, oh, this is good and so on. It's just a very inferior replica of trying to replicate what was done 1,000 years ago of the great scholars of Islam, that Allah has showered them with tawfiq and hidayah. Alright, so they have this existential framework, which I'm going to explain to you, and then they have this humanistic psychology. This is a time when Abraham Maslow talked about self-actualization. So they fuse all this together, and then they develop a psychotherapy which is based on existential ideas, divorcing God from the whole purpose and meaning in life. And when that happened, they faces a lot of challenges, all right? So what are the 5 challenges that they cannot answer? One is death, all right? So they cannot understand how we are going to tackle this idea of death. So what do? There is a lot of suppression and repress. They suppress the thing, or repression. So they will try to escape from the idea of death and do not mention death. So the best way out is never mention death, and don't explain that you are going to die. But the existential question of, they themselves know that death is ever coming. They are just 1 second from death, or 1 hour from death, or 1 year from death, or 10 years from death. So death is ever present. So that is a major question in which existential psychotherapy could not answer. So those who are already having fear of death, the only solution is for them to not think about it, is morbid. That's why in the Western world, over the last 100 years, it is morbid to talk about death. Whereas in Islam, within the Islamic perspective, we understand death is just a transition, all right? And even there's a hadith attributed to Rasulullah or Sayyidina Ali, you have to die before you die. That means you have to understand what is the nature of death. And we are not afraid of facing or to suppress the understanding of death. Death is something that we will go through and will understand the nature of death. So that is where Islamic psychology has a whole framework in terms of our spiritual, emotional, mental and physical self. I explained to you in the last video. And then they have the problem of the tribulations of life. So they have an idea. They discover how to overcome meaningless and purposelessness in life. They are trying to give you a purpose and meaning in life, just like mere grind of living day to day without purpose and meaning. They are trying to give you an existential idea of something greater than yourself in terms of your work in society or your work in your family. A lot of them are linked to, for example, movement, political movement, but that has resulted in the development of communism, socialism, and it becomes, again, because it is atheistic philosophy, they have no mercy, no love, no sense of reality. So mass murder, the First World War, the Second World War, the Second World War especially, where millions are being killed, then Stalin killed, Mao Zedong killed, all right, Pol Pot killed, you name it. All those who so-called, when they accepted this whole idea of existential ideas, they have divorced themselves from the sense of mercy, love and compassion. They have no love, no mercy, no compassion, because life is meaningless. So this is where they are trying to give a purpose and meaning, but when they give that meaning, it is actually becoming worse. The solution is even worse. It's not solving the problem of the people in terms of their psyche. All right, then they have this problem of freedom and free will. So because you cannot answer this whole idea of what is the nature of free will, they move away from humanistic psychology towards humanistic. Okay, you self-actualize yourself in whatever career, whatever vocation that you do, and be good at it. All right, so that's very superficial, but to a certain extent it works. And then individual isolation. Individual isolation is a very key concept there, because basically they cannot understand of this group think. Why people run towards group? All right, why people become extremists, fascists, for example, fascism, communism. These are group think. So what is group think? They come together and then huddle around one leader. For example, Nazism. It is fascist Nazism, and you know Hitler killed millions of people. All right. His basis is basically influence the individual, and the individual become part of one, all right, automaton in society. It's just like a robot. So whatever Hitler says must be true. You follow Hitler's direction and you become a robot. You kill, whatever it is, whether it's the Jews or whether it's the Roma culture or the Poles or the French or whatever. They just do it just like a robot. That's where they find so-called some sort of security in terms of individual, because individually they cannot think already. So this is where Islam gave us this individual perspective in terms of our responsibility as individuals vis-a-vis the collective responsibility. Okay, so we have this responsibility to ourselves, the various levels explained to you in the previous video, our responsibility to our family, our responsibility to our society, our responsibility to the ummah, our responsibility to the world, to all humanity, our society, our responsibility to all creatures in this universe. So Islam has this integrated framework insofar as how individual will not be isolated. You are part of a greater good. All right, and then the last one is basically they have this meaningless in life. Existential view, from the existential psychotherapy view, you cannot find any meaning in life. You can only self-actualize to a certain extent within your career or your music or your profession or your political leanings, whatever that you have, and use that as a basis of finding meaning and purpose in life. But in Islam, our meaning and purpose in life is so revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are Allah's servant. We are Allah's Khalifa on this earth, and we are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have this fitrah, the internal compass that bring us towards understanding of the nature of life on this earth. So all these questions in terms of death, tribulation in life, freedom and free will, individual isolation, meaning in life or meaningless in life, Islamic psychology, especially positive Islamic psychology, has the answer. So I'm giving you the idea that we should not fret or be inferior to all those who are propounding, for example, cognitive behavior therapy. Oh, that's the in thing, the only thing. No, we have a higher understanding of ourselves. For example, we develop PICBT, Positive Islamic Cognitive Behavior Therapy, integrating our realms of existence, integrating the nature of goodness that Allah has created in us, the fitrah that Allah has given us, and so on. So we have a very integrative, powerful tool to overcome the psychosis and the neurosis of humanity in the 21st century. And that approach is through Islamic psychology. Our therapy would be positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, which we have developed, and inshallah, as we go along in this video, you can understand the beauty of this deen of Islam, the truth of this deen, the nature of living in goodness according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And do not be fanatical zealots, do not become takfir, people who make kafir of everybody. Have this sense of hubbullah and hubbun nas, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love of all creatures on this earth, whether they are Muslims, non-Muslims, wherever they are, whether they are butterflies, birds or bees, whether they are the stars, the planets. All of us are manifestation from the creative process of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for us we have a special purpose and meaning in life, that we are the sincere servant of Allah, we are His Khalifa on this earth, the most positive worldview ever revealed to us, that we are the vicegerent of God on this earth, always striving to make ourselves good, helping others to be good, and making the world good, inshallah.